nobody is debating the talent that Gio Reyna is or what he hopefully can be as he progresses. Not me, not you, not anybody out there, not Gregg Berhalter, certainly not Gio Reyna's parents. But everything that he does takes on added and more significant meaning, especially when you celebrate like this. And don't think for a second that players don't have not ulterior motives, just have motives by the way in which they celebrate. It is that moment where you know every camera and eyeball is going to be on you, and what you do is going to be interpreted and at times misinterpreted. So here is Gio Reyna putting his fingers in his ears. To Gio Reyna, I say this. Gio, I would love nothing more than to not have to hear another word about the crap that you and your parents pulled during the World Cup. Unfortunately, it is not going away and not going away anytime soon. And so we are going to have to continue to hear it. And obviously, by your reaction, you are hearing it. I actually am happy that you at least recognize that you need to be able to cut that out as to the extent that you can and go on. I'm happy that you are getting playing time. I'm happy that you're scoring a banger like this. That is wonderful. That was never, ever the question. And so those attaching meaning and significant and more meaning to this in order to validate their criticism and or hatred of Gregg Berhalter for not playing Gio Reyna, I don't see that connection. Just because Gio Reyna got in the game, by the way, again, in a substitute capacity, and performed when he got on the field, does not mean that Gregg Berhalter is a bad coach or that Gregg Berhalter's decision in how to react and handle Gio Reyna during the World Cup was wrong, or that Gio Reyna should have started for the U.S. in the 2022 World Cup. I know that's convenient, and I know it's right there in the palm of your hand, but that's not how soccer works. Nobody's going to change their opinion about Gregg Berhalter or Gio Reyna relative to anything that I say or relative to seeing something like this. But for a lot of people, this is the confirmation that they needed, that Gregg Berhalter needs to go and that he screwed up in the World Cup.
But there are different elements to this Berhalter-Reyna story, and it's worth remembering the jumping off point for the whole thing was Berhalter telling Reyna before the World Cup that he was going to have a limited role. Gio was upset about that. He started loafing in practice, and all the ugliness ensued from there. And I still say the Reynas were way out of line. I feel sorry for Gregg Berhalter. But from a soccer coaching perspective, he does still have to answer for that initial decision because Gio Reyna, I know, has battled lots of injury problems, but he was healthy by the time the World Cup came around. He had been playing for Dortmund. He is clearly one of the U.S.'s most talented players. And so why decide beforehand that he's going to have a limited role? That I don't quite understand. Again, it doesn't justify anything the Reynas did afterwards, but if we're just talking strictly from a soccer perspective, evaluating the job Gregg Berhalter did as a coach at this World Cup, that is something that's questionable.
So wait, you question a coach being honest with the player?
Oh, no. Once he decided he was going to have a limited role, I don't have a problem with him telling Gio that, but why did he make that decision in the first place?
Because he didn't think that he was good enough to start.
And I question that decision. I mean,
okay, that's fine. But that's a subjective decision ultimately. Yeah. And so when a coach makes a decision that is going to be the case, he can certainly string the player along. And there are those that would argue that that's what a good coach would do, and keep some powder dry and not put that seed into a player's head that makes them already know before the tournament starts that they are going to be limited. There's the other side of it, and we've talked about this before, where you're actually being honest and forthright with the player. And then publicly, I think it's a little disingenuous to accuse Gregg Berhalter, as people have done, of lying, okay, when he is trying to actually protect a player from the inevitable criticism that would come for the truth being out there in a World Cup that you have done this relative to, disciplinary action or behavior that you deemed it was necessary in order to act the way that you did. So ultimately, Gio Reyna has moved on from the World Cup. We are not moving on. And that he's doing this celebration guarantees that this story will continue on, which is what we are talking about right now. So mission accomplished, if that's what you wanted to do, Gio. I'm happy that he's scoring goals. We're going to talk a little bit more about this later on in the show and get into a little bit more about the future of the national team, whether it includes Gregg Berhalter. It's going to include Gio Reyna, but that he is playing, that he is scoring, that is a good thing for him. That is a good thing for the national team.
You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops every week. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops twice a week right here on my very own YouTube page. The only way to stay up to date is to hit that subscribe button down below. Size the day, and see you soon.